Hello, Michael's here. Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
Hi,
This
Vance.
is
Doing well here on a Sunday night.
yeah. This is Vance Stevens and Aline. We're starting our session with theoretically David Winet, who is our esteemed colleague from Study.com many years ago. Michael Coghlan, co-founder of Webheads in Action, and also a denizen from Study.com. And we're starting our hangout on time. We have plenty to talk about because Michael and I are. Um, we were in there with David. He started the things. But basically, we're going to talk about, right now, I'm still trying to set up. So maybe Michael can who you are.
Well, greetings, folks. It's just after 10:30 p.m. here in Adelaide on a Sunday night, and this was the time back in, I don't know, 1987 or something, 1997, where I used to come on a Sunday night to teach students at StudyCom. And at that point, StudyCom was just this very vague, innovative space where someone called David Winet was organizing people to teach students online. And I wisely or foolishly volunteered, even though I knew very little about the internet. And the rest is history. So I'll talk more about that in a bit. But I was here at this time on a Sunday night. It was noon GMT. It was always noon GMT. So it's a little bit later than noon GMT right now. But
it's 1300 GMT now. But we've been meeting. That was back as early as we go back. At least when I met Michael at Study.com. Actually, it was in the Palace because that's where we used to teach. The first archives we have are from 1998. I had just started hanging out in the Palace. I think I'd been teaching from 1997 with Study.com. When did you start teaching with them?
I think 97, I think, was the year. Though I hesitate to use the word teaching at that point. I was assigned a class, let's say, in 1997 and messed around and found my feet, and I guess after some time probably started teaching people, but in the beginning it was really learning things about how on earth do you do this.
Yeah. My class started in email, and it was called Writing and Grammar, I think. About as catch-all a name as I could think of. What was yours called?
Mine was called, well, it was exactly, I don't know, but it was a listening class. So David handed me perhaps the hardest gig of all, especially to someone who really didn't have many skills, and he needed a listening teacher to teach pronunciation, I suppose, listening and pronunciation. I don't remember what it was called, but it was listening, so it was audio.
And that would have been really difficult to do because back when I started in 97, email was the tool du jour, and I carried on email correspondence with students. And as I've written in many places, I found out that they liked to send emails and they liked to chat and they liked to meet other people and communicate in English, but they had no interest in any kind of syllabus that I might have dreamed up. I think I pretty much abandoned that idea. But David came up with the Palace. You were there when I got there, so what had you and Maggie were there actually, so Jeff has joined us. David has joined us.
Yeah, it seems weird to contemplate that right now, but I actually met David before I met you, Vance. Hi, Jeff. Good to see you there.
Hello, all.
Hi.
I'm just going to. I've actually got still some of the courses that I designed. So stunning design. I'll just put this in the text chat. Hey, David's back. Good.
Yeah.
Finally.
Hey, David. You're live.
We've started, Mike and I. Yeah, we started talking about our just our beginnings with study.com, and Michael was just about to tell when he met you, and so let Michael continue his story.
Well, David, you've heard the story many times because you were there, but do you still remember the number of times I bothered you? You asked me to take the listening class, so it was your fault. I knew nothing about this, but you wanted someone to take the listening class, and I was crazy enough to say, okay. But that meant for the next several months, I just plagued you with questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And, you know, you were very patient with me, and you taught me a hell of a lot. And finally, I knew enough to do it. So I'll be ever grateful. I learned a lot of skills, and you were very patient. Now, David's frozen, it would seem.
I'm coming and going here. I think I'll try to turn off the video. I don't remember that, though, Michael. I remember you doing everything with very little help.
Oh, good. let's keep it that way.
All right. Yeah, no.
I'm just looking at that URL that I've put in the text chat. Do you remember a thing called Pure Voice?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I've been muted all this time. Yeah, we can hear you, David.
Great. Yeah, well, I want to thank you guys. I may have forgotten to thank you back in 1996 or whatever for helping get steady. But thanks a bunch.
You paid me in kind. You let me sleep in your house a few times.
It was a pleasure. My wife says hi, by the way.
Oh, good. And likewise.
Let's hear from Jeff. Jeff is also in the Hangout.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, I'm just having fun at archive.org's Wayback Machine and looking through I toss into the chat room study.com 1.0 from 1996, and now I'm meeting some of the present teachers from 1999. Oh, Michael, you're right on top of the list.
Can you, if you find some links, maybe you could save me a little trouble, just put the links in an email or something. Or there we go. I see you're putting it in a chat wing. That's fine. The chat wing was a good place for it. And yeah, okay. So we can put those on our archive of the session.
Young man up top.
Whoa. Who's that surfer boy?
Wow, he's got a good tan.
Well, you know, the reason we're talking about this now, two big reasons. The first big reason is that David has he sold the study.com domain, but study.com continues to exist. Actually, Vanessa Vale just posted in the Hangout event chat some links also. That some of these links are live. What links are live?
Good tan.
By the way, now Allison has just joined us. Allison McCall.
Well,
see, this is
the reason we're talking about this is two big reasons.
Allison, you need to mute your stream because we're getting that echo on that. So if you can switch off the stream, it sounds good now. Okay. Anyway, this is your life, Dave Winet. Allison McCall was one of your back in the days. Well, anyway, maybe Allison, if you've got a mic, you could tell us a little bit about your experience with study.com. And Nina Liakos has joined us from Maryland. I'm sure she can say hi. And
how are you, Nina? Haven't seen you for a while.
Okay.
I'm sure the story has been told many times.
Anyway.
I don't know if I've ever heard the origin story of study.com from... oh, he just left us. Oh, no. I was going to ask Dave about the origin story and the original vision.
Yeah, you know, actually that was the first reason that we're doing this today is because Dave sold the domain. Now, as Vanessa pointed out, many links are still live, so it's not that he sold, the URLs are still there, and the concept is still there. In fact, he's evolved it, and he can tell us more about that. And the second reason is that because this is that study.com to me and to Michael and to many people who experienced it, obviously to Alice and Nicole, was a really crucible experience in our, especially as Webheads in Action evolved from that. Writing for Webheads, first of all, in 1998, as far as we can figure out. That's a course that Michael and I and Maggi Doty merged our classes. We were just talking about how those classes originated. Mine originated in an email course, and Michael was about to tell us about that. But in any event, he was teaching listening, which was very interesting because I don't recall a lot of listening tools back in those days. But in any event, that's what we're getting Michael to do, or not Michael, David to do, is to write an article for TESOL EJ. Like one time I got Jeff LeBeau to do that, which is almost like getting Michael to do it. Jeff's put forth more paragraphs than Michael has so far. So what we want to do is we want to see if we can give David something to talk about, in his article, and see. Obviously, this is a really momentous occasion that Study.com has gone from 1996, I think, until 20 years later. 2014, I think he sold it. So we're just talking about, what we can remember and trying to give things that will toggle David's memory.
Actually, I'm counting on you guys, yeah, because my memory is very poor indeed for all these matters.
While you were gone, Dave, I was wondering about the original vision. When you started it, what was the vision? What was the plan?
Well, it started as an email thing. I had us teaching in Berkeley. Just got an email, and I said, well, heck, I like me by email. And University, I mean, it's university at that time. Wayback Machine. Great. Awesome. So that's how it started. And then when what was it? Netscape. Mosaic started, and started to realize, we could make this a lot more attractive. Have a web page. And basically, my fundamental idea was to be able to deliver teaching by trained native English speakers to students who would theory.
Dave, could you repeat that, please? I missed about half of it. I don't know, is everybody else's audio going in and out for Dave?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, he's
Can you guys
actually,
hear me?
Yes, we can.
I think he's doing it just to make it feel like it's 1996 again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's dropped out again. So he actually writes about that in his article. Maybe we can share it, a pre-publication view. Right now it's just a private article between him and me and Michael. And but we could probably share it, as put it in the archive. But certainly, if it works, it's got to be done by the 12th of May, but we'll put it in TESOL-EJ, so you'll be able to read a bit about that. So I'd ask Michael how you taught listening back in 1997.
Well, I was just going to say, in response to Jeff's comment, that we couldn't have done this because there were no pictures. There were no moving pictures. We had audio. Yahoo Messenger, in fact, was one of the very first tools that we used for audio. Because Eudora was a widespread email program back then, and I think, as Vance said, he ran an email course. Dave, I think, was saying that too. I think most of us used Eudora. Eudora very early on had this voice plugin called Pure Voice. That you don't know what happened to Vance there, but and Real Audio was the center of what I was doing, and I referred earlier to asking Dave a million questions, and it was about how to use Real Audio. So I set up pages that had listening exercises, and students would, I think they actually wrote back their answers to me. If they were really clever, they might be able to use Pure Voice to record their own voice and attach their answers and send it back to me in email, or they wrote their responses, I think is how it happened initially. So I'd set up these exercises where people would listen to things and students would send back whatever they could, however they could. And if they were really clever, and there was a student called Yinglan who lived in Taiwan, and she was our star student at the time, and we used to have one-on-one chats. So once or twice a week, Yinglan and I would meet, and that was basically about pronunciation. So there's a few things that I did, but it was very, well, incipient, and it was learn as you go. And one of the things I learned, I put up some pieces of music and then found out I wasn't allowed to do that because there were copyright issues. So someone has joined us. Looks like Mariana maybe has joined us. Hey.
Hello. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
I'm going to mute. Just dobar dan, Nina. Just to join you quick. I'm eager to learn more about how the Webheads started and say hello to all.
Yeah, I might say we've got 8 people in the Hangout right now, so there's room for 2 more if anybody's listening in on the stream. Often people do. We have a chat wing going, chatwing.com/VANCESTEV. And these URLs are posted. The stream is posted on webheadsinAction.org/live. It's also on Learning2gether with a 2. That's tinyurl.com/learning2gether with a 2. You can find the stream there. So you can listen or you can join us. We have also the direct URL to the Hangout is posted in those places, and people appear to have found it. I'd like to welcome, besides Mariana, whom we just heard from Croatia, Mariana Skolcic. I've really been working on that name. And we also have Vanessa Vale in New Mexico. Robert Walkman has joined us from the Philippines. So welcome to all of you. Vanessa, by the way, posted, she's been in the Hangout event chat and posted some links. You found some links that are still working for study.com, is that right? Like you thought maybe the chatterbox was still working.
Well, no, well, there was a link on the Yahoo group page is still up, and it has links to today's Transbase page that used to be study.com when it had a domain name, and there was a link for Chatterbox, but I tried but couldn't go anywhere with it, so maybe there's another one up. the group links aren't always as, the links on the group page are not always as well currently as up to date as they could be.
Vanessa, were you teaching at study.com?
Okay, I just posting something now. Yeah, I started in '98, and you and Michael were already there, and I thought you'd been there years ahead of me, and it turned out it was not that long. I thought you were the expert.
No, you were the expert. we were all learning. Oh, we've just been photographed by Mariana. Let's see. Who else? Allison McCall was also a teacher at study.com. Do you have any recollections you'd like to share with us? There's David.
I'm on my tablet.
All right.
Okay.
Nexus 7.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Hi, who's that?
It's Alison. It's Alison. I couldn't get my mic to work, so I've just typed an enormously long introduction, which explains that before I met you, I had a brief correspondence with Vance, who won't remember me at all. But a very long time ago, when my youngest son was about 5, I bought a computer because I knew he was going to have difficulties. Someone gave me Vance Stevens' name. I'd never heard of him, and if I had heard of you, I'm sure I wouldn't have had the nerve to approach you. But you, Vance, gave me a lot of support about online learning materials, which I was very grateful for, and it's been more than 2 decades since I should have thanked you. So a decade after your help, I got involved with EFL and met Dave, and then Vance's name came up again, and Webheads. So my online teaching experience, once I'd qualified, was at StudyCom, and it remains a huge part of my life, and a tremendous fund of memories, because it was innovative. We had students from everywhere.
And what were you teaching?
Well, we had audio classes, I think, by the time I came, which was about spring 2003, we could use audio classes, and we just had general speaking classes. I worked in tandem quite a lot with Dina, and our main aim was to encourage students to talk about everything, about anything. And my particular interest was trying to get the students to do something that interested them, but do it in English. So as the internet opened up, to explore their interest in photography or whatever in English on an American or British site, an Australian site, and StudyCom, gave us a space to just to talk to such a number of people. It was amazing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd like to say, if you can go to Chatwing and post links there. Actually, the links you post in the group chat here in the Hangout, I'll click on them and I'll include those links in the show notes. But I can't copy and paste from there. So I just made a screenshot of Allison's nice. The only way I'll be able to get it out of there is through the screenshot. So if you can put anything you want to preserve.
I put that into the Chatwing chat. I just copied it. I don't know if I got the whole thing, but I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, mine is not copying for some reason or other. I'm not sure why that is. But I just cannot drag them.
Can I ask something, Alison, if that's okay? Sure. I was curious about your posts, and if you are involved even today. Well, you mentioned your son has special needs, or have you ever worked with inclusive students and use of technology with students with certain learning disabilities?
No, in fact, I didn't. I became interested in teaching because I could see that my son would need help, and using what I learned on the internet, I became a volunteer tutor for adults with learning difficulties, adults who were illiterate, and it was through my interest in teaching them that I moved sideways to helping EFL students here in Scotland, immigrants, students, workers, and I was a volunteer tutor for a couple of years, and I realized I would never get a paid job till I qualified. So I qualified, and once qualified, I approached StudyCom, and Dave let me experiment with the students, and I'm tremendously grateful for that. Tremendously. Good fun.
This was just because I'm a member of eTwinning. Those are a website or a social networking site for European teachers, and I have recently become a moderator of one eTwinning group called Inclusive Education. So teachers from Europe can join and share all of their expertise, knowledge, lessons, materials, technology, everything. So it's just recently new, and I'm proud of it. I'm a bit scared because I'm on my own, but because of the Webheads, it's very simple for me. I have learned really much for the past 4 years, and I was just thinking maybe you have more experience on this, and since you are from Europe, you can join. Unfortunately, people who are not from Europe cannot, but they can come and participate in a learning, how to say, expert talk maybe. So that's it. That's why I just had this small digression about asking you about learning disabilities. And thank you.
Okay, I'd like to, because we have David and Michael here, and as I explained earlier, we're trying to produce an article that would be reminiscent of David's work, which we all appreciate quite a lot. I think, well, you know, you never really know when you do what David has done, how people are responding to this, you know, and but this is an opportunity to tell him, first of all, and to get him to write about it and archive it. So I see Vanessa's request to post the chat wing link there. Could someone do that if you don't mind? If not, I'll do it. But anyway,
Nina's already done it.
Yes, good. Okay, thanks. But I remember just, you know, Dave and I used to, well, first of all, he invented the name Webheads. I mean, that's one thing I've credited him with many times, and that's because I was sitting in my office in UAE just chatting with him over our open internet, and I think we used to go to Active Worlds and move around in Active Worlds. I did this with Michael as well, and we'd get hooked up with voice chats, and the Palace was a really interesting place to be as well. I might like to find out a little bit more about Coterie and what's happened to the people who set up that space. But the Palace and Active Worlds were spaces we were populating and using the voice chats in the background. Eventually, the Hear Me plugin came along, which I think really kind of took Webheads in Action up to a really higher level. Ingwan, I remember quite well. She used to send us real audio files, and also she told me one time I'd posted one of her songs on the internet and I should take it down. So maybe she was the one that was complaining about that. But anyhow, one thing that I remember that David did one time, he had a camera that had controls that he could control the angle of the camera, but he put it into a mode where we had control so that we could at our computers move the camera around and direct it. Now, that was a lot of fun. Do you remember that, David?
I do. And
what were we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun playing with all those tools as they came out. Still is.
Yeah, the Palace was really a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody else here was using the Palace, but that was one of my favorite all-time spaces. It was just Dave used to call it 3D learning, and students who expressed interest in 3D learning were passed on to Michael and Maggie and I. And there was 3D in the sense, I mean, obviously it's a two-dimensional flat space, but if you click on objects, you're taken into other rooms, and it you know, seemed to be a 3D space. But students really liked it. They just had lots of possibilities. So Coach Ree set it up, and there was a lady there who seemed quite, you know, interested in forwarding our goals. What happened to them?
Lost touch. I don't know.
What was her name, David? We went. Well, I went to visit her in San Francisco.
Her name was Nettie. I've forgotten her last name.
Nettie.
Yeah, wonderful person. She actually redesigned the whole site for me and made it look beautiful, which is why after a certain date you'll notice the site actually looks more presentable.
Yeah, I visited her in Active World. She had a really wonderful house there with all kinds of artwork in it. And of course, that's a precursor to Second Life, which David moved into. All of us tinkered with Second Life. But you set up classes there. You were doing a lot of meeting your classes in Second Life. You're not doing it anymore. Why is that? Why did you leave that space, or what attracted you?
Why did I leave Second Life?
Mm-hmm. What was the attraction? Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, the attraction is it's a simulation of real life, which has always been my goal online, is to try and get as close to real world sorts of communication as possible. So now I realize you can actually improve on real world communication. Augmented reality. Yeah, the problem with Second Life, I think, was apart from the technical problems, it was quite slow a lot of times, was keeping people from wandering off. We should have had our own somehow locked area, I think, where once people were there, they'd need to stay, because people tended to wander off and go visit other parts of Second Life, and so it's a bit anarchic.
I had a question about live interaction, if I may. One of the things that struck me about study.com when I first checked it out was that they had a place for live chat among language learners, which in the early days was really hard to find, and I still find hasn't really reached its potential. I mean, it's not that easy to find. You know, there's Hangouts and whatever, but there aren't that many places where language learners can go and just chat with each other. And I'm curious how that went at the time, and how robust that was, and what issues you had dealing with that.
Well, it was always a challenge because of bandwidth problems and so on, just like I'm having today with my old netbook. But I think part of the problem is just that it's hard to talk to strangers. I think the more successful sites now are things like Live Mocha, where you hook up with somebody who wants to learn your language and you want to learn their language, and you have a reason to communicate with a perfect stranger. Otherwise, it is a little difficult, I think, to break the ice and have experiences that are deep enough that you become friends. Although it does happen, but I believe that is something of a problem online. It allows you, being online allows you to reach out to people who you would never ever speak to otherwise, but at the same time, the reason you would never ever speak to them is because their lives are so separate from yours. So I do think that's a kind of psychological problem.
Yeah, I think it may still be true, but back then it was 5 or 10 minutes was about as effective as it could be. There was this thrill, particularly in the early days, that it could happen at all, that you'd be talking to a complete stranger elsewhere in the world and hearing them, or at least chatting with them. Even that was thrilling. But once that thrill was over, it was really kind of a struggle to find enough to maintain the conversation more than 10 minutes. Would you agree, Dave?
I would, and that's why people like Allison and others, Dina, are so good at kind of guiding the conversation and making everyone feel so warm and welcome. So they were able to take the technology and make it more human, which is a neat trick, and I think only certain people are able to do it. I know it's a problem for me.
I
yell at everybody.
Go ahead, Alison.
Sorry, I think StudyCom, one of the great things about it was, it was open access 24 hours a day, and enough people were there long enough to feel quite comfortable. I think, Dave, you're right. I think Dina and I made a very definite decision that we would make part of our personal lives available, simply to make conversation, to have a chat, and using the technology that was available to us in StudyCom, or using Yahoo at the same time. We would do things like, I remember, showing the contents of my jewellery box, which is incredibly modest. But the students responded to seeing a real person, showing their earrings, and suddenly, they could form questions. That was the point of the chat at the time, where did you get the earrings, all this sort of thing. So it was a kind of safe environment for a lot of people. It clearly was. We had students who met in StudyCom, crossed the world, and got married. And that was my best example of doing something practical in English. I got a lovely email when they said, we used your classes to improve our English, to get to know each other, and we got married. And we have the photographs.
Hey, you might want to post those, Alison.
Yeah.
I've got another good one. A group of my students ended up, from my long-running rolling class, they just didn't want to leave, so we kept taking in new people, and the others stayed around. They met in South Korea at a conference. One of the students who was in Mexico was going to present in South Korea, so he contacted the other students that were from there, and they all met and got together. It wasn't with me, but they posted pictures to everybody. And then several years back, I met one of my former students showed up in a MOOC that I was in, and she posted immediately, well, I've done this before with Vanessa. She was an early adapter. We've done this before. And the others were sort of like, what's going on? But it was funny to meet a former student in another class. And
cool. Which MOOC was it?
It was the MOOC, that strange one that the hybrid pedagogy did. I found it was they tried to, what it is they tried to cram a whole bunch of stuff in a weekend, and everybody was like going nuts, I think. But I explained, I posted this over on the Rizzo community, because as I pointed out that Study.com and Vance's multiliteracies were sort of the gateway for me getting into this stuff anyway. So they weren't the new kids on the block after all.
Yeah, it's really interesting how we in our virtual environments, because I've met Dave a number of times. I've come across Michael Coghlan a couple of times. I've met Jeff in New York, and Robert. We used to meet at TESOL conferences a lot. But people like Vanessa and Mariana haven't met yet, but I probably will one day. You never know. But it's interesting how these virtual lives sort of intertwine over such a long period of time, longer than we've realized, really.
That's so true. And the students often, some of the students have been around StudyCom for 10 years. Some people just make it a second home in a way. what Vanessa said reminded me of something that was a really neat activity, which was, I don't know if any of you know Qik, Q-I-K. That was a kind of a broadcasting software, and I used it to interview Americans walking around on the sidewalks of Berkeley, where I live.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the great thing was that the students, the StudyCom students watching this, were able to ask these Americans any questions they wanted. So there was an interchange, you know, with average people in real time. And, you know, I think that's always been my bent, to try to do things in real time. And I think that's the real, if you're looking for, you know, what made StudyCom a little different, maybe from ESL Cafe or really wonderful sites like that, is the live aspect.
Yeah, Michael was saying earlier that this is the time we always used to meet on Sunday. He was one of the first things he said at the beginning of our audio. And it is. It's what we have done this. We have met in some space at about this time every Sunday since 1998, I suppose. Almost every Sunday. I figure probably at least 50 meetings a year, and so that's, you do the math, you come up with a couple of hundred meetings that we've had, and that's that live aspect. And then, of course, Jeff is another really good example of someone who takes webcams to conferences and sets up there. He's been doing that for such a long time. People used to do webinars, and Jeff was just sort of the black sheep in the webinar family, because they did webinars that they streamed top down, peer to peer, you know, which was I think the people in our setting, you know, this milieu, we're ones who feel very strongly that that's the way you reach people, through social networks.
I think we're a herd of black sheep. I don't know.
Yeah,
do sheep have herd? What is the congregation of sheep?
Flock.
Flock.
There we go.
I think you can also have a herd of sheep.
But shepherds aren't called sheep flockers. They're called shepherds.
Yeah, right. That's what I was going to say.
I ran into Jeff again. And remember when you did the radio stuff in EduMove? Vance was in it too. It was actually the best part of the course. He did his pirate radio broadcast. Sort of an alt radio course.
There you go. It's a little cluster of people and a part of a MOOC. You know, you get this little group together usually that relates to each other, and that's kind of what we do. And a lot of it stems from what David did. So that's kind of you know, at least from the Webheads part of it anyway, pretty much started with David.
I'd like to just add to that, because what you've said, Vance, is absolutely true, but because of what I did with David, it just gave me avenues way beyond the Webheads, where I became kind of, you know, whether it was true or not, I became known as an expert in stuff, and it was stuff that I began with StudyCom. So not only did it allow me to kind of find my feet as an online teacher and hopefully assist students, it was an incredible benefit to me professionally for the rest of my life, David, and I'll never forget you in StudyCom for it, because that's where it started, and you sowed the seed, man, and thank you.
Well, all I can say, Michael, is show me the money. I think you should send 10% of all the money you've made because of StudyCom to me.
Michael, I'd like, you know, that's exactly how I feel. Because of my experience on StudyCom, I mean, that definitely got me the paying gigs, which came later. Although, I don't know if you remember, Dave, Dean and I certainly used to get private messages from some students who were sure that we were paid government agents, and they would quote our monthly salary. you know, and all we could say was, you know, I wish, but there were some students who felt that it was completely impossible, you know, that we did this on a voluntary basis, and they knew the CIA paid us monthly. So I want to know where my money is.
Well, it's being siphoned off by the government to support the war in Afghanistan. So
I am curious how you held out so long, and like how many offers did you get? How often did you get offers to buy study.com?
I did get offers pretty regularly, but nothing that was that tempting until I actually went out and got a good broker, and he found somebody within 3 days. And I really like the people who bought it. I don't know if you've been to study.com now, but it's an education site. I believe it's a couple of guys out of Stanford. It's really well done. And when I picked the name StudyCom, speaking of reminiscences, apart from the fact that English.com was already taken by a guy named like Robert English, talk about a waste. I picked study.com because I had visions of developing it beyond ESL into a general study thing, which, you know, I never really had the energy to do. But that's exactly what it is now. So I'm quite pleased, actually.
Do you have any other domains, or?
Do I have any other domains? Yeah, I had one for a while called teachfromthebeach.com.
Oh, I like that.
But no, I haven't tried to move StudyCom to another domain. I do teach on a site called Chatonic, which is nice because it's free and you don't have to sign in and all that, all the things I like. But I, you know, after the whole first period of the pioneers and the, you know, the excitement of what the technology could do, the StudyCom started getting fewer students and fewer volunteer teachers. I mean, naturally, teachers need to make a living, so volunteering, unless it's a skill they want to acquire, and it is hard to get. And so that became problematic. Also, it's pretty much me just teaching and just a few kind of long-term students. So I thought maybe the time had come to sell the name. But I'm still interested in the concept of, as we all are, teaching online and developing online education, seeing what it can do that normal education cannot.
So what projects are you involved in at the moment, or sites we can go to? I just Googled I'll teach from the beach, but I didn't really get productive.
Yeah, I don't think I own that anymore, actually. But right now, I'm interested. I've been teaching a lot of writing classes in my day job, and I've been using a site called Poll Everywhere. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also using WeChat, which is the Chinese version of WhatsApp. I have a lot of Chinese students, otherwise I could use WhatsApp for the same purpose. My idea was that basically students don't like to write. It's a drudgery and it's always just an assignment. I wanted to get them writing because they wanted to write. And both of those tools are really effective for that. And one great thing about Poll Everywhere, if you've got the kind of electronic classroom where you have a screen in front and everybody can see it, you can have the students go on Poll Everywhere and ask questions, and they can answer anonymously, so they can be completely frank, because nobody knows who's answering, you know, who's answering the questions. And so I haven't used that online yet, but there's no reason it couldn't be done with online students as well. I recommend you try it. I think it's really good for getting students to write because they want to write.
I've been having a lot of fun with iPads and the voice tools in iPad. You know, the kind of tool that when you pick up your mobile and you hit the microphone button and you talk into it instead of having to type out a message. And my students don't necessarily have, like if your students are Chinese, they may not have the skills that would enable them to actually get a message in there. But what they'll do is if they write something, I can read it into their iPad, or actually using Google Docs, I can read it into my iPad. So you know, it overcomes, using the voice can get students to articulate what they want to say that they can then develop. So that's a rich area for pursuit, I think.
So you mean they would write something and then you would read what they had written and it would be typed out by iPad?
Well, yeah, in Google Docs, if you use Google Docs on iPad or on an Android for that matter, or something that has the little mic icon, suppose, for example, you read what a student has written, and you could then take that in Google Doc, and it's on your iPad, let's say, and you could say, you could hit the mic button and say, I think you meant to say, and then you could say what you think the student is trying to say, okay. and then they can, or if they, some of my students might write something on paper, and I'll read that back into them, or I try to get them to do it themselves, but when they do it, the results are not necessarily that good. But if I can get them to write something and I can say it for them, then they've got that's actually in pretty decent English, and this is something that, you know, that I just noticed this last year and started using, and you know, it's a pretty cool tool.
Yeah, sounds good.
Went to a workshop by Lindsay Clanfeld, and he, part of his workshop, he was explaining how writing has come from, obviously, from the scribes who would write down on scrolls of paper, you know, or not paper, papyrus or tablets or whatever, what someone said. So writing has gone from oral to written culturally, and now it's going back, he thinks, to oral, especially with texting and things like that. So it's, anyway, interesting ideas. There's some literature basis for that.
I was at a conference years and years back in Southern California, and a medievalist that I knew from Denver gave a presentation on oral culture and the internet, and this was like back in, well, before I even joined EFI. I think something like 97, and she was saying that she saw, as a medievalist, she saw the internet going that direction, and she even made the distinction between the use of icons being more traditional in oral culture because you had people who couldn't read, so they looked at the pictures, and the difference between text and image-driven. That the image-driven in online stuff, like in the Macs, where they were, you know, the WYSIWYG, instead of having to do keystrokes, was actually, she saw a relationship to oral practices in that. Where, because street signs, for example, would be images, not words. You know, a picture of a loaf of bread instead of calling it Baker Street, so that people who couldn't read could tell the signs. But she saw a lot of orality in the internet. So did Sam Armistead in Davis, and he did medieval oral traditions too. He said, it's halfway between oral and written. It partakes of both. And then I've come across more of that. And students don't like to write, do they?
No, and it's a real pain on an iPad, and that's actually why I was forced to use the voice, because writing on an iPad is really tedious.
Is there a special app required for that? What do you use to enable voice comments?
Well, the voice is, you know, enabled on a mobile device. Let me see if I can just, oops, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so, you know, anytime, let's say I want to send a message, a text message, you get the, hello. Oh well, anyway, you get a little microphone down at the bottom of the keyboard, and it's almost, the students have hardly really noticed it, but I'm starting to use it just in anything they're writing, almost anything. Gmail, obviously, you know, and Google Tools will all have the little mic there. And another tool I use is Dragon Dictate, Dragon Dictate, a free Dragon tool. A lot of you are probably familiar with Dragon. They used to sell a voice recognition tool, which really works pretty well now for free. So lots of tools.
I had sort of a non sequitur question. I question for iPeople. I've been doing a lot of audiovisual stuff, mobile stuff this semester, and like shadow reading. And with Android, the media players, you can control the speed. I haven't found an Apple media player that lets you control the speed, or a free app. Any of you iPeople know of a free media player app that will let you control the speed?
I can control the speed on my podcasts, so the phone can do it, but I never tried to.
And it's an iPhone?
It. Yeah, it's a 5C.
Yeah,
I discovered this inadvertently one day when my podcast was running too fast, and I started looking around the screen to try to figure out why it was doing that, and discovered down on the lower left there was a little movable thing that I could move with my finger, and it said 1x. But if it went past 1x, then it got too fast. So if it went below 1x, it got slower.
Jeff, check the accessibility tools on your features on your computer, because a lot of the voice apps are under that, because it's computer access for the visually disabled.
When you he's talking about iPad,
right?
Well, see, I don't have an iPad or a mobile. I just have the one little laptop, and
right. Like on my Windows computer, no problem. On my Android mobile devices, no problem. On my iPad, I haven't been able to figure it out.
But it might be under disability access too.
Yeah, that's a good point, because visually impaired people like to speed up what they're reading.
When that you're using iPad, don't you have like a keyboard that you can attach to your tablet? Because I just got a tablet for the first time in my life, yeah.
Congratulations.
And they even bought me, yeah, way to go. That's why I'm taking this creative course on using tablets, because my school is going to have finally a future classroom lab with lots of tablets and Wi-Fi all around the school. So we are totally technologically advanced. For me, that's a lot. And they gave me a tablet and a keyboard. You know, the stuff with B, and then I write like a small laptop. Is that possible for iPad as well? Like a keyboard that you can attach to the screen of iPad?
Yeah, that works in places where they fund things like that. In my context, they're giving all the kids iPads, but they. I mean, sure. Conference I just went to in Toronto, people were talking about these solutions. They had just they used to have computers on wheels. Now they have keyboards on wheels. I guess they've gone from cow to cow.
Well, it's been fun with all of you, and as I said in the chat, Webheads are my number one family, even though I am a member of so many things. But I have to say goodbye, as my family is waiting for me. It's Sunday afternoon here. Bye, and good luck. I will watch the recording later on. Bye.
Okay, well, this is being recorded. It's going on YouTube. I get the MP3 from that. If you want to hear that, I get one that you can download. So, and you can download the MP4. Anyway, there's recordings of everything we do for the last all those Sunday meetings that we've talked about since 1998. There's been some kind of archive of all of them, and recently they've been things that you could play on a media player.
What a treasure trove!
Bye-bye.
I know it's
Vance,
a little late for
this opportunity. It's a little late for me, and I've got stuff to do before I go to bed.
I was going to give you one last question, just one last question. What's the coolest tool, that you ever saw Dave use?
I'm going to be I can't get past real audio. I mean, that was the first. It was a major shift in everything because it allowed you to record, it allowed you to listen. It was an incredibly versatile tool. I mean, it was the media player of the early internet, and so I'd go for real audio or real player. I think it was called in the beginning, or was it vice versa?
What about Hear Me? I thought Hear Me was. I don't know. We got that from Dave, but Hear Me was the audio tool in all tools. You could just set it up in your website.
Yeah, or as you've said, Dave didn't give us everything, and we found that without him.
Yeah.
He may well have been using it, and we didn't know it.
I might just mention. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to let David know I'm looking forward to the invitation to the holiday in the Bahamas on the proceeds of the sale of StudyCom. So, cheers, mate. And
all that CIA money he's been siphoning off. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, use your CIA money.
And
Thanks for
I'll
joining
just
us,
sit
Michael.
quietly for a few minutes and then fade away. But cheers, David, and congratulations, I guess.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your kindness.
Oggi è così. Hey, before I forget, Dave.
That's Marina. Oh, Michael, you're still here. Do you remember Marina from Italy, from the early Webhead days? This is Marina.
Well,
in 2000, she was a Webhead. In 2000, yes.
Once a Webhead, always a Webhead.
There you are, and she just Skyped the other day and said, "Are you still doing that? I remember those really nice Sunday gatherings we used to have." And here she is. So
hello,
still doing it, Marina.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Welcome. Yeah. Still in Rome?
Yes, I'm still in Rome.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just perfectly.
Okay, it's the first time I use this application. I really opened now for the first time.
Good, okay.
So, I'm very happy to meet you, everybody, after so many years.
Yeah.
You look older. Me too, I think.
Did you ever use study.com? Did you ever use study.com? I don't know if you just came through Webheads or if you ever used the study.com environment that Dave Winet set up for learning English.
Really, it's a long time I don't use the chat and in any because I don't have a lot of spare time, but I always love to speak English. So, and I was talking about you 2 or 3 days ago when I was with one of my friends, and I was remembering my chats with the Webheads group. Then after I thought maybe it's a good idea to try to find them again, you know. So I was I looked for you and I found you.
Great, yeah. We don't hide.
This is my daughter, Katerina.
Hi. Hi, Katerina.
And she has 10. And when we met in the 2000, she was not born. So she's the new one. Now I have 2 children. I have a boy of 16 and Katerina 10.
That explains the lack of spare time.
And I'm very busy, really, because I work for in a little company that's my company, and my husband is a good teacher of Cisco apparels. He's a Cisco instructor. So I have to practice English as well for my job.
Okay. Well, you can join us any Sunday. Nowadays we hang out a lot, and we always have an event of some kind. So you can find us and join us, no problem.
Yes, yes. Surely, I will try to participate in your meetings sometimes when I will have spare time. And today I'm at home, and after lunch, I've just finished my lunch. We usually have lunch very late on Sunday, usually 2 hours after the normal time. It's a very long lunch.
Was Marina a teacher at Webhead or a student
I was
Webhead?
a teacher. I'm not a teacher anymore.
I see.
Because now I'm working with my husband as a I'm the organizer, and I'm doing the organization and the administration. Okay. And I'm doing an office job. I'm doing an accountant job and also organization. We organize courses for technical courses in communications, like Cisco or routers. Do you know routers? The engines to connect. Also,
you're working in meters.
We're doing courses about security. But I'm not the expert. I'm just doing I'm just organizing, preparing everything. But the technical expert is my husband. It's not me. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here with you, and also I'm so I'm not so used to speaking English, I'm not so fluent.
You're doing fine. Well, this has been really fun.
Thank you, Nina, for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Dave. I remember meeting you, I think it was in Seattle.
Yeah.
At the T-Cell convention, and I don't think I've seen you at a T-Cell convention since. Is that the case?
Let's see.
Maybe you were in Colorado, which is the one that I missed.
Because I went to Tampa Bay.
No. I've been to everyone since Seattle.
I tried to go to Toronto because I put in to give a little talk in the Electronic Village, and I didn't get any approvals.
Yeah, it's getting tough. It's tough.
Well, yeah, but then on the day on the Saturday, I got an urgent message from Tom Robb, and he goes, "Your station is empty. Are you here? Are you coming? You're supposed to be speaking." And it turned out that the acceptance email went to my spam, so I missed the whole thing.
Oh, what a shame. Which year was that?
That was this year.
This year? Oh, no. And this year was my last one.
Oh, no.
Well, well, sort of. I'm not going to go to the T-Cell convention next year, but I'm going to come up and have dinner with any webheads that are there, because it's only an hour from here.
If Vance will organize it.
But the really good news is that Dave is going to give that presentation on Learning Together. We've set a date for it. I can't remember the date, but you can catch that presentation here.
Great. What's it about?
Thank you, Vance.
Dave, it must be the lasting legacy of StudyCom that you made the world a bit smaller. I mean, we have never met, and it's only in the last couple of months that I met Svetlana, and yet, I always assumed that we knew each other very well, and the same was true of lots of students. In fact, when I retired, I got the chance to meet several StudyCom students. Inevitably, you get close to some, and when I retired, Robert and I opened the house to anyone who could get here, and that was just astonishing to meet. I mean, I won't name them, but to meet the StudyCom students who jumped out of StudyCom into our living room, and yet, you know, they were exactly the same as they'd been, and there were no surprises, none. And you know, and I was so impressed with that I did make inquiries. This will give your Republican heart, you know, to skip a beat. I did make inquiries to see how we could get you a gong, you know, a British award, not a knighthood, but, you know, for your service to the development of the English language. And I went through the first stage, but I mean, it's really, you know what I'm like, you know, a great idea, but can't be bothered doing the work. So it fell on the admin, but the thought was there. So it's David Winet, as you should be.
Lovely. Please call me Sir David from now on.
No. No.
The other day we had a hangout speaking to a teacher from Mexico named Cara, and someone joined the chat who's living in near Barcelona, and she found out that I was going to there in July, and she invited me to stay at her place with my wife, of course. And so there's a place to stay, and I don't really know who she is. Her name is Sabrina Wilson, by the way, and she said she's been hanging out with Webheads for a long time, or, you know, lurking. Which, by the way, Ali Bustangioglu is doing a PhD on Webheads. He's come and talked to us about it. But the PhD is about, what he's really interested in is this aspect of lurking. And like, why would someone like Marina turn up after many years? Because those ties really exist. They're very strong. You know, just and also we were talking about students getting married to each other that met in study.com and things like that. So this is the interesting thing that, and you know, you can open your doors and have people come into your house and you don't have any problems. This is pretty normal, yeah. You know. It's really rare to have problems with someone. It does happen, but, you know, it's very rare.
I think it depends on why you meet them, you know, because I don't think that predators are out there trolling educational sites.
I think that might be true. Vance, I had a Brazilian student two Brazilian students who eventually made it here. And they were in London, they came to visit me. I encouraged them to go to Paris once in a lifetime, and they did for a weekend. Several years later, one got married in Brazil. He's established in Brazil. He wanted his wife. He wanted us to meet his wife, and they decided to spend their honeymoon in Paris. And they invited my husband and I on their honeymoon. I've always wanted to go to Paris on honeymoon, but I meant my own instead of and you really, you know, it was a really good feeling. We met this chap and his wife. I don't think we'll meet again. You know, we've got the photographs of the baby and the invite to the christening, but to be invited on honeymoon, and you know, it was something else.
That's extraordinary.
So, it is extraordinary.
And someone else who takes people in who was in the Webheads crowd was Yao Dong Chen. And actually, he's been really nice to a lot of people who visited China. He was quite nice to me. He was teaching courses on study.com, in Chinese courses. And I wrote him, and I invited him to join us today. I did hear back from him. But I have been in touch with him off and on Skype. He's someone who also, like us, he feels that there's a lot of benefit from connecting students. He's got huge classes of students to experiment with connecting them to people in the outside world. And that's how we got to know him. And by the way, David, he was listed as teaching Chinese. And the last time I looked at the study.com site, which might have been a year ago or something like that, I click on that link often because I sometimes write about it, you know, and I just make sure it's working. And that's how I found out that the domain had transferred. So, so was he actually teaching? When was the last time he was teaching courses that you're aware of?
Yao Dong?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was a while back, 2010 maybe, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have many takers at the time, I think, to learn Chinese.
Yeah, but so your study.com was trying to develop skills in all languages, not just English.
Right, because I started thinking, well, English isn't the only important world language, and I tried to think what the others might be, and came up with Chinese and Spanish. It's probably the most widely spoken, so I recruited Yao Dong and tried to recruit Alba to teach Spanish, but never succeeded. Yeah, but I still kind of think that, you know, I mean, English can't be the only language that people learn, obviously.
There are lots of Spanish-speaking webheads, but they're all English teachers. Although Daphne...
Not to mention Portuguese as well.
Right.
Portuguese too.
Daphne teaches Spanish, doesn't she, in addition to English?
Probably.
Well, let's see. I guess, you know, what things could we flesh out in that article? I haven't looked at it lately, but we need to get started. We need to really get focused on that. But there's, you know, there's things that would be interesting to develop. Will you have time to be doing that, by the way, in the next few days or week?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
You're talking to everybody. You talking to me?
Yes, about the article.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I sent you something, so I'm sort of still waiting for your feedback on that. I sent you a kind of basic
comment.
Reminiscence. So I'm not sure where you want to go with the article. I've also collected some things from a few former teachers, some reminiscences they had. I'm not sure how you view this article. I guess you wanted me to talk about some of the innovative tools, and that's certainly easy to do.
Yeah,
Dave,
whatever you can remember. Yeah.
Sorry for your article. I was just thinking, do you remember? I remember your emphasis on encouraging the students to. We did things together online. Remember, we made photo albums and we built simple web pages. Of course, all the students could do that in their own language, but we kind of tried to distract them from their, you know, their skills in their own language. So they had to follow your instructions to make a simple web page in English, and I think that was a, you know, that was a great thing in StudyCom, where as an adult we'd been used to having a repetition of our, you know, childhood classes, you know, in grammar, but in StudyCom there was a lot of chat, not about the structure of the language, but, you know, it was sufficiently distracting so that people used whatever English they had just as a tool, and I think that's what made it special, because we forgot that, you know, we all forgot that we were learning English or practicing English, and we learned all sorts of stuff.
That's always the idea, you know. If you can create a situation where the person really wants to say something, it's really important to them, and they have to say it in English.
That's like Minecraft. If people are building things in Minecraft, they forget that they're doing it in English.
Yeah, and they want to show people what they've built, and so since the kids know Minecraft, the teachers don't. The kids have to explain to the teachers what they've done.
My real life colleague teaching here decided, aged 56, to go dating again. She'd been divorced for a long time. We had a class of women who said absolutely nothing. She promised that she would answer any question, properly formed, on her experiences as a 56-year-old woman in online dating. My goodness, did their English improve.
That's perfect.
It was a very closed kind of world. These were wives of various workers, and suddenly they could ask questions. And there was such a sort of element of trust there and a bit of daring. I mean, obviously, you have to judge the situation, but if you're willing to reveal something of your life, I'm sure people respond to that.
Right.
Or maybe it's just us nosy Scots.
That's authentic communication. And makes
Right.
people want to use the language.
Dave, I thought of another authentic writing one for you.
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with Instructables?
Sorry, say again?
Instructables.
Instructables.com. Instructables, INSTRU, and so on?
Yeah, I'm typing it out on the side now.
Oh, okay. I can't see that on this tablet, though.
Okay, well, I'll go. What about Chatwing?
Can you just send it to my email?
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll email it to you. But basically, you submit your own little things that you make. DIY. It's a DIY site. And there are a lot of non-native speakers on it, and it's a whole range of things, from building a yurt to making, repairing computers, to recipes, to furniture. It's just everything. And some of it's very complex, and some of it's quite simple and straightforward. But it's fun reading too. And I think they give awards for the most interesting ones that people upvote and stuff like that. That might be something maybe not for the beginner students, but the ones that a little bit more on.
I think in real, real world classes, most of the students tend to be beginners to intermediate, at least in my world. And I think there are a lot of people who want to use English. They've got a basic command, but they need to use it in some sort of context. And I believe we could probably access those people with this approach.
And
working people.
Yeah, they can just illustrate. Actually, they can put a series of pictures and illustrate for the steps. Take pictures as they make something, and then just caption them.
That's awesome.
I'm glad I remembered to tell you. Every time I've been making a note to myself, I need to tell David. Every time I look at something on there, I say, so I have. And I'll send you an email, too.
Yeah. Yes, tell me all the stuff you like.
Yeah. But another interesting thing about the way we were doing things at the beginning, trying out everything, and this was teaching before the LMS. Nobody, there was no Moodle, there was no Blackboard, you just figured out, you just looked for stuff to use and figured out how to do it. And now they're going back to that with the connectivist stuff. You're getting out of the LMS.
Yeah.
The escape from the platform.
Right. Well, I think the platform, serves a purpose, but the internet is such a rich, source of all kinds of things. It seems sad to just limit oneself to an LMS.
Well, the thing with the LMS when they first started out, they were very convenient if you were teaching college courses, because then you had you had everything there in one place. But it was your own material. But now the trend with the LMS is that the schools buy course packs with them. So that's no fun for anybody. It's sort of it's learning. It comes. They sell them with the learning materials on them, and but now there's also, what with the popularity of the more open structures, there's a move back to say, oh well, we can be more open, but it's sort of like you didn't need to be so close in the first place. But it's the proprietary thing.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any argument from this group. think we're all for that. Am I right?
Yeah.
Vanessa, I don't remember you in our audio classes, but I do remember that Dave was very keen that we exploited anything free on the internet, and we simply used.
When did you start, Allison?
Well, I looked. It was spring 2003.
Okay, because I started in '98.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I probably met you in some of the seminars, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely met you in seminars.
I mean, the name is familiar. I tried to get Pat to come. I sent her an email, but I haven't heard from her in a while.
So this is the first time I've heard your voice. Definitely.
Well, I've been up until just this past year. I've been on a fairly slow connection because I'm out in a fairly remote rural area, and retired on a fixed income, and the greater bandwidth was more expensive out here than in the city.
Yeah.
So I just kept putting it off, and finally I kind of had to. Well, they dropped the price some, and then I had to spring from it for it because there were so many things that weren't working on the slower bandwidth.
Well, I think it was the same at StudyCom. Dave, you were always trying to encourage us to find tools, that were freely available, and I know you got a lot of help from Alado. But when the possibility of video first came, do you remember that we trawled the internet to see if we could find a platform which would allow us free video, and you and we found a place which turned out to be full. There was certainly video, and you could get 25 people in the room, but they seemed to be naked. And I remember saying to you, I'm in the room, and the video is good, and the sound's good, but the guy is naked. And you said, does he speak English? Can he speak English? Doesn't matter.
Was that chat roulette or something?
It's chat roulette, something like that. I said, well, he's from Kentucky. So we excluded him. It was too complicated. The English wasn't working well. But I think we gave that up pretty quick.
Yeah, that can be a problem.
I wonder if it was me that dropped out. I lost audio there for a while. Were you guys seem to have been continuing your conversation?
You dropped out.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Oh, you missed the naked chat.
You were talking all about naked students.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Not naked students. Not naked students. Free video rooms.
Right, free video rooms. Right. Just teasing.
Oh, were any of you around at the Webheads in Action Online Convergence? I think it was in 2005 or maybe it was 2007, where we invited Robin Good to give a presentation. Did any of you see that? You remember it?
No, but I'd like to.
Yeah. Well,
was that the one where he was on a motorcycle?
That's right. Yep. That's it.
I don't know if I went there or just heard about it.
Yeah, this was one of our 3 virtual conferences. They lasted for 3 days. They were just kind of 3-day hangouts that we just had one presentation after another. We had keynote speakers. We had George Siemens, Stephen Downs, Lee Blackall. We had Dave Cormier give a talk at one time. I mean, a keynote. We had David Noonan. Kurt Bonk gave 2 keynotes in one event. So anyway, we had a lot of people contributing, and Robin Good gave a talk, but he was on a train coming home to Rome while the previous talk was going on, which was Timu Leinonen. And he's coming on a train and keeping in touch with me somehow on the train. He arrives at his home just about the time he's about to go on, and he's got to come up with something. So he starts a Ustream chat, or I think maybe it was called Ustream, or I don't know. Anyways, one of these things you're talking about, just a live video chat, and he invited people to go there, and people started going there, and it was just a lot of fun because it was so unexpected. And in the end, he put the cam on his helmet and got on his motorbike and started driving off in the streets, and we followed him until he lost it, and it was just the wow presentation of the, it just broke the mold of all presentations. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. I think that was a temporary site, or he didn't preserve it. I'm not sure, but anyway, it just wowed everybody.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of crowd we're in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Vance, we did the same thing in StudyCom once we got using video, because I remember buying a lead for my webcam and putting it out of my window, into the back garden. This is Scotland, and putting it in the kitchen and baking scones. But like Vanessa's website, it was all about instructions. I mean, we did have a plan, but it was a bit vague. But the students responded to seeing our baby photographs, our wedding photographs, our garden, whatever, because this is what people talk about in real life.
Sure.
So I never felt stalked.
Yeah. No, that's the secret to teaching. I think I've said at plenaries that I've given that there's no such thing as a language teacher. There are only language learners, and no one teaches you a language. You just have to be put in a position of learning it. So, and you want to do that in order to learn. So, if you get in a situation where you can exercise your language and enjoy doing it, that's what Dave has been very good at, setting up environments for that, and that's what we've been doing. In all our online activities, and even like the EVO session I just ran recently on Minecraft, had no point except to get people into the space and then find out what's really interesting about interacting in that space. That's why language learners like it so much. But it doesn't necessarily need a plan. That's what I'm talking about in Tarragona, by the way, how you can just set these things up spontaneously. In other words, the teacher doesn't have to know what the teacher is teaching. The teacher has to bring people there, and then, Anyhow, shall we call it a night? We've been here for an hour and a half with Dave, I think, and certainly appreciate. When I dropped out, I didn't know things were going on. I did the outro. I said, "This is Vance Stevens in Al Ain, UAE, and this is the 3rd of May, and we're talking with Dave Winet, who about his study.com, which he started in 1996, I think. That's correct, and sold in 2014. So that's 22 years, I think. And that's quite a good record. So he's obviously had a lot of people he's influenced, and we've tried to have a few of those people here tonight. And we still have with us Allison, one of the teachers, and Vanessa, who's also one of the teachers, been interacting with each other all this time. And we have Nina Viakos, who's been doing something very similar.
Inspiration from Dave.
Yes, of course. So it's just interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting to talk about these threads as they run through our virtual existence and ooze out into our real world. As Allison said, that's where you learn, to do something that you can actually earn a living from. So, thank you all for joining us. Yeah,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
It's really great to see all of you. Really great to see all of you. Hope to see you again soon.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Bye.
And listen to everybody.
Okay. I'm going to leave this going so I can click on the links and make sure I preserve them for the. But I'll stop the recording. Shall I do that? So stop broadcast down here. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.